Hello and welcome back to my orchid life, and today we are going to do a video on houseplants. I have decided that I am going to start doing Sunday houseplants, and today we are going to talk about the maculata wightii, or wightii, depending on where you're from, depends on how you pronounce it. I do want to apologize ahead of time if you hear Loki, who is my supervisor in most of my videos, bark. I do have the house open, the front door is open, and sometimes he likes to just bark at the wind or someone walking by, but generally it's the wind. Anywho, so the maculata wightii, I am going to move you down so that you can see. One second here. What we have here, this is my angel wing begonia, and I wanted to show you this one. So this is when you know you need to water. She is very, very dry, and she's really in too big of a pot, I think. But what I've been doing is I have been watering just along the cane so that the water is more centralized, and she's going to keep falling the more I mess with her. So I'm going to move her off to the side, and when I stake my begonias, I try to just set them on there. This one here, I may have to put a small tie or something just to hold her on there. But angel wing begonia and the maculata wightii, or wightii, I call it the wightii, are cane begonias, and your cane begonias are known for their angel wing shape. And if this one were more open, you could really see it. But do you see that kind of angel wing shape there? The angel wing begonia, let me move her over here. The angel wing begonia and the maculata wightii both have spotting on their leaves. The angel wing begonia is more white when she's hydrated. And this is my maculata wightii. You can still find these online, and people sell these as a rare plant, and they will sell you one leaf for like 40 bucks. I got this at my local Lowe's for like $20, and the only reason I think it was $20 is because it did come in a nice white decorative pot. I think she is way over potted. I think she's staying wet too long, because I do like to let my begonias dry out in between watering. So I'm going to take her out of this pot today, and I am going to put her in, this was the smallest terracotta pot I could find that I have without going to the store and buying one. But I think it'll be okay, because with the terracotta, it'll absorb any excess water that is in there. And I'm suspecting that most of her roots are kaput. I've had her since May, and this is May 2021. For those of you who are watching this at a later date, I've had her since then. Like I said, I got her at my local Lowe's. This is the original pot that she came in. The only thing that I did was add this aquarium pebble on top to keep it from drying out too much. She did have another cane here that has since died off, and I'm trying to save this one so I don't lose her, because she is pretty when she's healthy looking. So the Begonia maculata wightii is actually a fairly new plant in comparison to a lot of other plants. Let me do this real quick to make the noise. It was only recently discovered in 1982, 1987 in Brazil. That's where they're from, so that gives you an indication of their care requirements. They like it hot and humid. Well, if you grow in your home, you're not getting hot and humid. Well, you can get hot, but if you get humid, you might want to move out of your house. So let's squeeze the pot a little bit. Now, they prefer, yeah, see, this media is still wet at the bottom. But they prefer bright indirect light, almost phalaenopsis light. I've seen some people and read some places where they said that they can take direct sunlight in the morning. I wouldn't recommend it, because depending on the time of the year and where you have it, that sun might be too strong, and then you'll end up with burnt leaves. Oh, my baby looks terrible. As with most begonias, they are susceptible to mildew. So if you get water on the leaves, that can cause mildew to build up, and it can actually take your plant down. So if you see that, all you have to do is just take a spray bottle and put in some either neem oil, or I use Dawn soap, because it helps it evaporate really quickly. It doesn't sit. and spray the whole entire plant, even if you only see a little bit of rot. And what it looks like is, I don't have it on this one, but it's a little brown. It'll be little brown spots, and you'll notice it more on the underside, and sometimes you'll see it on the top side as well. Like here's a residual, see that brown spot, kind of dried area? That was a little bit of brown where the water sat there a little too long. But what you do is you spray underneath on the leaves, the whole plant. And then I usually will set mine under a fan to make sure that it dries out really well, just to keep it from obviously building up more rot. So I'm not going to take all of this off of here, but this feels like it's the cocoa peat, which does stay wet for a long time. The roots are not as bad as I thought they were going to be, so that's a plus. And she does have this new cane coming off right here, so I'm hoping that will be her saving grace. Let me just clean her up a little bit. So as they grow new leaves, it'll be in a sheath, and then that sheath, once it dries off, I always take it off. So about once a week, maybe every other week, I do go through my begonia and just peel off all of the dried sheaths, take off any of the leaves that have died. I'm going to leave these on here just because that's all she has to help her photosynthesize. And I'm hoping that once I get her in this new pot and get her a little better hydrated, then she will perk up a little bit, and then the rest of these growths, because she's got lots and lots of new leaf growth. Like she's got here, she's got some here, and like I said, here. And as you can see this leaf right here has the sheath on it. As the leaf opens, that sheath will pop out. Similar to our cattleyas that bloom from sheath. See? Houseplants and orchids have a lot in common. And I do have a video. I'll link it down below, and I'll put it somewhere up in the video as well if you want to go look at that after this. That explains why I think orchids make good houseplants. Actually, I think I say great houseplants. All right, so, but this is what she was in. So if you see that, that's just a bunch of cocoa husk, and it does stay wet rather long. So let's move that out the way. I'm sorry if any of that is shaky. And what I'm going to pot her in is, let me just show you guys real quick. What I'm going to pot her in is Miracle Grow potting soil. And real quick, so the difference between potting soil and gardening soil, because a lot of people think they're interchangeable, and they're not. So gardening soil is literally for gardening outside. It is specifically formulated for the outside plants, whereas your potting soil, it's a lot looser, and it is formulated for pots. Thus in the name, potting soil, gardening soil. That was something that used to confuse a lot of people, a lot of my customers when I worked at Lowe's, and I learned how to explain that rather quickly. Okay, normally I would put a rock at the bottom to cover this hole, but I don't have a rock, and I don't have, thought maybe there was a nice big piece of bark. All right, so back to the soil. So it's potting soil, perlite, small bark chips, and I do have a little bit of charcoal in here. And there is more perlite than anything in here, simply because I want that aeration, but perlite will also hold on to the moisture to help keep it moist, not wet. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, what is moist but not wet? Keep it damp. Because when you think about it, when you're watering it, it's wet. And then as time progresses, it gets damp. So you just have to find that happy medium. So what I've done is I've taken 2 small bark chips and just kind of put them together, and they've come apart while I'm showing you, to keep the soil from falling out of the bottom, is kind of what that plan is, and to keep it from getting clumped in there. So let's put some here at the bottom. There we go. And I also have some slow release fertilizer that I'm going to put in here, because these guys are not heavy feeders. In the growing season, you do want to fertilize them maybe once a week, once every other week, depending on how you adjust your fertilizer. I only fertilize mine with MSU fertilizer. The one that I use is for pretty much every plant known to man. I've probably fertilized her probably every other week since I've had her. Since she started going downhill though, I've kind of stopped with the fertilizing just because I was afraid that the roots that were in there were not any good. So I didn't want to burn them just in case there were no roots in there. But having opened her up and looked inside, now I see that she does have those roots down there. So I will probably fertilize her next week, because that would be the normal cycle for her to be fertilized, and then continue to fertilize her for, well, as long as she's growing, because growing season means, you know, usually spring to fall is what we call the growing season. But my theory is, as long as a plant is growing, they're still in their growing season. So why stop fertilizing just because of the time of the year? If your plant, whether it be a house plant or whether it be an orchid, if they are actively growing, whether it's growing new leaves, new roots, new structures, then fertilize it, because it's going to need that additional help to make everything nice and strong and grow up to be a happy plant. Now, I'm not going to put the soil up too high, because I am going to top this off with some more aquarium pebble, again, just to kind of help keep this from drying out too much, especially now that it's in a terracotta pot, and the terracotta will absorb the excess moisture and draw it away. And I'm hoping that that will make this lady much better. So like I said, I'm not going to cut these off. I am, however, after the video, going to stake it up so that these leaves are not touching the terracotta pot, so that if it does get too wet or for whatever reason, it doesn't damage the leaves. I mean, they don't look that good anyway, but salvage what I can until these new leaves open up and hopefully recover her. Initially, when I bought her, she was gorgeous. I'll put a picture up of when I bought her if I can find it. If not, you can go look at my houseplant tour from May. I'll post that as well, because I believe I have her in there. And I was wanting to send a piece to Justin from Justin's Orchids and More. However, I'm going to have to get more maculata wightii in order to send him a piece in the spring. Sorry, Justin. So let me just, I forgot I had these stakes already. So let me just stake her up really quick right there like that. And there she is. So what I'll do when I water her is I'm only going to water around the cane. So these are called canes. I'm going to just water around the cane and let the water drip through for about a minute or two, and then that's it. Because I'm not going to water the whole pot, because she's only got a very small root system and it's all right there around the cane. Even when she gets larger, like my other begonias that have several canes in their pot, what I do is I take a watering can that has a spout. I like the one with the longer spout, and I just pour it around the canes. I don't pour it around the whole pot, because then you might make it too wet. Whereas putting it around the cane, that drier soil around will help absorb any excess you may have put in there. And like I just said, also with the terracotta pot, hopefully that'll help dry this one out too. Do not be afraid to let your begonia dry out before you water it again. I know they require humidity, and I know a lot of sources will say keep it moist at all times, but I feel like sometimes that can get confusing. So it's better to err on the side of letting it dry out and be too dry and droop, and then watering it, let it perk back up, than it is to keep watering it to keep it moist and then possibly killing the roots on the inside, or in the case of a begonia, getting mildew. And there's a specific name for it, and of course I knew what it was, and I still know what it is. I just can't think of it right now, but I'll put it somewhere along here as far as what the name of it is, so that you will know that as well. All right, well, if you guys have a maculata wightii that is in great condition, let me know down below how you take care of it. If you want one, keep a lookout at your local Lowe's. They usually come out in the springtime. You're not going to find, well, you shouldn't find them in the wintertime. But if you do, when you bring it home, make sure you cover it with a bag, especially if it's cool outside, because these ladies do not like cold. They do prefer it a lot warmer. The more light that they get, this dark green right here will lighten up. That's why a lot of people will confuse it with, let me just move my angel wing begonia over her. So if you give it too much light, they will lighten up. So a lot of people will confuse the maculata wightii with the begonia angel wing. So you do want to keep it in kind of more dappled light, because you want to keep that darkness on there so that those spots really pop. And I think that's one of the things too, is I think I had her in too bright of light. Plus where she was sitting, I think she was getting a draft. So that may be part of this leaf drying off here. And I forgot to do something, so let me do it real quick. I forgot to add my slow release fertilizer. So I'm just going to move some of the soil out of the way. I usually put my slow release fertilizer about 1/4 inch below the soil. And depending on the size of the plant will depend on how many beads I use. So I put about 3 or 4 right there. And then let's cover that back up. And then I'll put a little bit on this side, maybe 1 or 2, 3 or 4, however many I pick up. Because in the winter I do cut back on fertilizing all of my plants, but since she is newly actively in growth, I will put that slow release fertilizer. And 99% of my plants, even my orchids, have that slow release fertilizer in there. So they do get a little bit of fertilizer when I'm doing the flushing, but they don't get a whole lot. And just to look real quick, but look at the begonia angel wing. She's already starting to perk up, and I watered her right before we started the video. She's already starting to perk up and suck up that water. So that is wonderful. And I am thinking to, because all of my begonias, I split them up to make 2, but I think I messed up doing that by putting them in too big of a pot. I thought that they would take off a lot quicker than they have. So what I might end up doing is putting everybody back together and in a smaller pot. Of course, that is going to require me to go and buy some pots, because I don't have very many terracotta pots left. Let me know in the comments down below what you think, if I should just leave them as is, or should we just combine them and put them in a smaller pot, or should we wait until we see what this lady does and then judge from there. Leave it in the comments down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want, and we will see you on the next one.